Hello and welcome to A QISSAA with Ishika, the 9th episode, quintessential and inspiring stories of South Asian artists. My name is Ishika Muchal and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California, the land of the Tongva people, and wishing everyone a very happy Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. I am so excited to introduce to you my guest today, Vijayalakshmi, a renowned Mohiniyattam dancer, choreographer, and artistic director. Her unique interpretation of the dance form resonates with contemporary universal relevance, destroying stereotypes to delve deeply into femininity and beyond. She is trained under Guru Bharati Shivaji, who's also her mother, and has endeavored to take Mohiniyattam to higher levels by constantly exploring uncharted territories and expanding traditional boundaries through innovative choreographies inspired from a pan-Indian and global perspective. She has a bachelor's and master's in English literature from Lady Shriram College in Delhi University. She is the founder and director of the Mohiniyattam Institute in Los Angeles and artistic director for the Center For Mohiniyattam in New Delhi. Teaching, pursuing speaking and writing engagements, and developing new stage productions while continually traveling the world to present Mohiniyattam. She was also recently selected to be a UCLA Regents Lecturer. Her prominent productions include Unniarcha, Swan Lake inspired from Tchaikovsky, and Paryapti. Vijayalakshmi has performed at some of the most prestigious venues in India and around the globe, including the Bolshoi Theatre, the Edinburgh International Festival, and the Lincoln Center. Vijayalakshmi is a recipient of several prestigious honors and awards, including the Sanskriti Nritya Puruskar, the Kerala Sangeet Natak Academy, and the Rashtriya Ekta Award. She has co-authored a book along with Guru Bharati Shivaji entitled Mohiniyattam, and has received fellowships from the Department of Culture, Government of India, and Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts to pursue research in Mohiniyattam. In 2003, she was also profiled by The Week magazine as one of the 50 emerging stars of India to watch over the next decade. I am so honored to welcome Vijayalakshmi. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you so much for joining me.
You're most welcome. It's my pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
And so let's start from some questions towards the beginning of your life. Let's take it a little back. Did you always know that you wanted to be a dancer, or was there a certain source for your inspiration?
That's a great question to start with. I think I always knew I wanted to be a dancer because, having been born into a family where my mother was a dancer, she's in fact my guru.
Mhm.
And so I grew up in an atmosphere of music and dance. I mean, listening to it even before I was born. I think in some ways I started dancing in the womb, as my mother says. And so it was very natural, for me. It was like brushing my teeth. I just had to dance. And not that I was forced to dance, but it was a way of life from me from the time I was born.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah, and speaking about inspiration, of course, your Guruji and your mom, but is there anyone else who has been especially influential to you in your artistic journey?
No, I think it's really only been her because I feel very blessed because although my guru happens to be my mother, I've said this in my interviews earlier that as I started growing older, I realized that I was very blessed to have such a phenomenal guru like her.
Mhm.
And I never took that for granted just because she was my mother.
Mhm.
I mean, I just felt how blessed I was that I got to live with my guru, eat and breathe and sleep and just absorb every little nuance and aesthetic of the dance form. And in many ways, my journey of Mohiniyattam, which spans over 4 decades, it almost runs parallelly with that of my guru.
Mhm.
her journey was over 5 decades. So I was about 10 when she embarked on her journey of Mohiniyattam. So I feel so blessed and privileged that our journeys kind of overlap in Mohiniyattam, and that she has been singularly responsible for the reconstruction, revival, and rejuvenation of this dance form, being responsible for putting it on the national and international map. She has the singular distinction of doing that. So,
Mhm.
how fortunate am I to have somebody like that who's a performer? And she's not just somebody who taught, she's a performer who was my guru. So, I just feel extremely fortunate.
Absolutely. I mean, you were surrounded by dance. Like you said, you got to live, breathe, and just exist in the world of dance all the time. So that sounds
Yeah.
wonderful.
And music, because my grandmother is a Carnatic singer and my mother's also a singer. So we all, it's a way of life for us. To dance and sing it's like brushing our teeth.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely. And I'm sure there's some people who are watching who might not know what Mohiniyattam is. So could you explain what is distinct about Mohiniyattam and what you enjoy most about it?
okay. That's a wonderful question again. So Mohiniyattam literally translates into dance of the divine enchantress. Mohini meaning enchantress, Atam meaning dance. So, according to Indian Hindu legend, Vishnu, the preserver, he transformed himself into an alluring damsel to lure the demons to their own annihilation. So, but a deeper level of, but to me, the way Mohiniyattam resonates with me is, of course, it's a very traditional dance form that evolved in the temples of Kerala. But to me, this very traditional dance form has tremendous relevance to our society, especially as the dance form is deeply rooted in the sacred feminine. So it
Mhm.
resonates in a very strong way with femininity. So to me, I would say the dance form is a powerful expression of femininity, and it speaks to us as women. What do we understand of femininity? What does it mean to be a woman today? What is the definition, or what is the experience of being a woman? What does it entail? So to me, the dance form really speaks to that. And it's not just a traditional fossilized dance form that I'm just dancing all these items I was taught by my guru, or these
Yeah.
various choreographies that I do, but it is a living tradition which bears a great resonance with our lives today
Mhm.
in terms of femininity.
Absolutely. And you have always been such a big proponent of feminism and the relationship between femininity and feminism in your dance. So, how has that influenced your overall artistic voice?
That's a really good question again. Many of my, if I really go back to my very first production, Unniarcha, that I did about 21, 22 years ago, it was actually was a product of my really being quite tired of the way femininity was portrayed in Mohiniyattam itself.
Mhm.
It was a very where the woman was always meek, and oh, I so miss the wonderful days I spent with my lord, and now I am so weak and helpless, and I can only reminisce about those wonderful days. Or
Mhm.
where she was always portrayed as a very weak woman. And it had also it also kind of reflected the social reality of women in India. For thousands of years, the template that we saw in Mohiniyattam, and that we continue to see in our South Asian, especially Indian culture, where for thousands of years women have been suppressed, They've not
Mhm.
had a voice, and they've always been portrayed and they've always been expected to be diminutive and meek. So that also greatly kind of inspired me to break these very detrimental stereotypes as I saw it, extremely detrimental. So my first production was Unniarcha, inspired from a woman who really lived in Kerala about 370 years ago. She was an expert in Kalaripayattu, the ancient over 2,000-year-old martial art tradition. And I wanted to redefine grace, what we meant by grace. It's a very convenient thing, especially in our culture, where a woman is expected to be very graceful, which means you have to be very soft, submissive, meek, not have a voice. Those are the kind of the subtext of being graceful.
Mhm.
And I really wanted to demolish that, because we might be, as we might be a gender, but we are also human beings who must have a voice,
Absolutely.
and we comprise half the planet. So how can half the planet have no voice? I mean, that is dangerous, and that's how it's been. So I created this production, which was massively appreciated, and it for the first time in the history of Mohiniyattam, um, I brought in the Veera Rasa, or the
Mhm.
element of the, what shall I say, the emotion of valor. I
Mhm.
expanded the definition of femininity. Femininity is grace, beauty, definitely. I always say this: we are born beautiful by virtue of being born a woman. We don't need to do anything further.
Yes.
So we are born with a certain beauty. We are born with the great level of compassion and the nurturing and all of that. But there is much more to femininity than just its limited interpretation as we see it, whether it's in dance, in a dance form, or whether it's in society. Grace also implies strength, the
Mhm.
strength of a woman. Woman is extraordinarily powerful, and not just and physically powerful. I mean, the very fact that we give birth to children, how powerful are we? How amazingly powerful are we? And we have and the story was about Unniarcha, who was a traditional woman with a mind of her own. And the
Mhm.
whole choreography was based on Kalaripayattu.
Wow.
People never expected to see this really soft and graceful and swaying dance woman, these really powerful dancers doing martial arts. I mean, they were like, wow, we didn't expect this. I said, well, that's what femininity is about. It's we only define it in a very limited and detrimental, and only what is convenient uh,
Mhm.
to be interpreted, and which is very inconvenient for women to be interpreted in this limited manner. So that was my first production, and I absolutely loved it, and I completely revolutionized Mohiniyattam, I think. And after that, of course, I did Swan Lake, which has come to become known all over the world, and I'm so grateful. So that was in 2005, and that
Mhm.
was born out of my performance tour of the USSR when I was in my teens with my mother, and I happened to hear Tchaikovsky's amazing music of Swan Lake. And even before that, even though I've really come from a very traditional family of Carnatic music and classical Indian dance, I always had a very eclectic taste in music. And because I started traveling and performing from the age of 12 all over the world with my mother, I developed a great, what shall I say, I really loved exploring different genres of music. And I loved Western classical music. I used to listen to Beethoven and Mozart and during my teen years. And I thought, 18 years later, I never imagined I would create an entire production inspired from Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake. And I thought, this would be really interesting in Mohiniyattam. And we had the former president of India, the chief minister of Delhi, and the who's who of India
Yeah.
in my audience. And I premiered it in 2005 in Delhi. And we've done about 50 shows all around the world. And that very year, I was invited to present it at the very world famous Bolshoi Theatre. So
Mhm.
I felt like I really couldn't ask for more. It was like coming full circle, and I just couldn't ask for anything more. I never expected it to win, the kind of accolades that it did. And that I also found that it not only came to become a milestone in Mohiniyattam, but has come to become a milestone in the realm of Indian classical dance in general. Because
Mhm.
something like this has not been attempted in any other Indian dance form, let alone Mohiniyattam.
Mhm.
So my cup is so full. I am so happy and so proud of all the enormous strides that Mohiniyattam has made. And then after that, of course, another very major production was Paryapti. That was my tribute. That was my I did that as an inspiration to redefine the sacred, especially again in our Indian culture. How do we define the sacred? It's always the married woman who is the very sacred person, not sacred, I mean, who's highly respected in society. This
Mhm.
production was a tribute to all the marginalized women of society, especially the sex workers.
Yes.
And this was my tribute to the sex workers, to the divorced woman, to the separated woman, to the woman who chooses to remain single. Because such women in our culture are very, very stigmatized. Stigmatized. They really have to go through a lot of hardship to be able to be accepted in society. So this whole production was a tribute to all these marginalized women. So obviously the social aspect of femininity is a very burning source of inspiration for me in all my productions, for sure. And in fact, if you look at Durga Puja, so the whole production was inspired from the Bengali Durga Puja tradition. Even today, Durga's idol is not propitiated if soil is not brought from a sex worker's house.
Oh, wow.
And there is a reason, because I think that to me was really the most inspiring moment of the Durga Puja celebration, where how can you celebrate the sacred feminine, the ultimate goddess of femininity, and leave out a certain section of women? How can we do that? That
Yeah.
really struck a chord with me, and I thought, my God, this has got to be danced in Mohiniyattam. Again, something like this was never done in Mohiniyattam, and probably, as far as I know, has never been done in any Indian dance form, let alone Mohiniyattam. So it was an amazing experience to do that, to bring the cultural ethos of Bengal and Kerala together, because they both have a lot of they have a significant commonality between them, because both are regions of India where worship of the sacred feminine is very, very prominent. Shakti worship,
Mhm.
Shakti, which defines the sacred feminine, though they are both very prominent regions of the country where it takes place. So I thought, what could be a more perfect fit than that? So Paryapti happened. And then, of course, I worked in other productions. And because I'm situated in LA, I've got to work with a lot of eminent artists from Hollywood, and composers like Mac Quayle, who's a very, very well known. I don't know if you've heard of a episode, not episode, it's a series called Mr. Robot and
Mhm.
Fast and Furious. So he has done the music. He's a very, very, very well known composer. I've worked with him for over 10 years.
Wow.
And I've recorded a number of songs with him. I have sung and he has arranged the music. So I'm really grateful for all these wonderful collaborations and all these amazing and unique strides that Mohiniyattam has been able to make over the last many decades.
Yeah. I think it's so important what you're saying about pushing the boundaries within tradition, because like you're saying with femininity and feminism is often so often construed that one cannot work with the other, whereas they are both one in the same. Like they're not mutually exclusive. And as you were saying, the representation is just as important of the different types of women. Like women are not a monolith. So how you have represented different types of women and really given, like you were saying, that voice to many different types of beings is so very important. And I'm really thankful that you've done that. So thank you.
Thank you. You very well. You put it very well. You're absolutely right. It's so many dimensions of femininity, a woman's sexuality. That's again something that is so stigmatized. We never even permitted to talk about it. We are
Yes,
not even permitted to acknowledge our sexuality, you know. So these are very detrimental, and we've seen that in our culture for thousands of years. So I really like the dance form, or I like my productions to really address all these very critical aspects of femininity.
absolutely. Representation in any form is just as important. I mean, that's why I started the series, but even beyond South Asian, just gender and sexual orientation is also so important to have representation for, like you're saying.
Absolutely. And then I find that the issues are really the same everywhere. It's like an endemic where, it's just a question of degrees. I mean, misogyny exists in every part of the world. Certain regions is far much more, like in our culture, but
Mhm.
it seems to be plaguing the entire planet, and we
Yeah.
really need to address it.
It seems as if your dance is really bringing both feminism and a look at misogyny along with culture together in this very intersectional form.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It is something that I feel very passionately about. So in some ways, it really goes beyond the dance form itself. The dance form I just use as a powerful tool to address these things.
Mhm.
So the dance form kind of almost, like I said, it's just an instrument, but not the focus.
Absolutely. Yes, and for anyone who's joining us right now, I just wanted to remind everyone this is a Kissa with Ishika, and my guest today is the world-renowned dancer, author, feminist, and activist Vijayalakshmi. And make sure to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and let's get back into the interview. Um, so you were saying how you've moved to LA and how you're situated in LA. So I have to ask, when you moved to the US, what were some of the initial struggles that you faced when you came here?
That's a great question again. I discovered that Mohiniyattam was absolutely unknown in this part of the world.
Mhm.
That nobody knew anything about Mohiniyattam, and of course, I've been performing in America even before I moved here for the last 2 decades or so, 2 decades or a little over 2 decades. But I would always perform, do a performance tour, and go back to India.
Mhm.
But now that I was coming to live here, I found that people were only familiar with Bharatanatyam. That's
Mhm.
all, I mean, that is all they knew. And if you went beyond that, they knew about Kathak. So, but Bharatanatyam seems to have reigned supreme in America, which I don't have a problem with, except that uh, I found that people they had a very kind of myopic understanding of Indian dance, Indian
Mhm.
classical dance. And I think it became very important, and it became very challenging for me. It still is. It's still not so easy, but especially within the community to educate people about Mohiniyattam and tell them, I know you're familiar with Bharatanatyam and the Arangetram and all that goes with it, but here is another beautiful South Indian dance form from Kerala. It's powerful in its femininity, and this is all the work that's been done over several decades. And it's a constant process of educating them and inspiring them to, venture into it, and have their children learn it, or just attend our Mohiniyattam performances, or support the organization in all our endeavors. So it's been frankly quite an uphill task, but on the other hand, you know I'm very happy to have made great inroads with all the academic institutions in this country. The
Mhm.
universities, like UCLA, I've been teaching there for many years now, and all the UCs and all the top universities around the country. So they also, on their own, are not so much familiar with Indian dance beyond Bharatanatyam.
Mhm.
So, but they are far much more open. That's a very wonderful thing, because that's also very important, as I see Mohiniyattam getting an academic uh, recognition in the universities of America. That is a very important thing for me, I think.
Definitely.
So it's a process. You have to be continuously at it. And what happens is, when the mind is so because conditioned to thinking that this is all I know, I don't want to know anymore, that's very important to have an open mind for an audience or for a spectator. Very, very important with anything in life, not just dance. It's very important to be open to new ideas and to grow. Otherwise, we remain stagnant and we remain in a time warp,
Mhm.
which is not a very healthy situation to be in.
Yeah. Yes, definitely what you're saying about how creating exposure for anything that is lesser known is always an uphill battle, especially like even in the South Asian, in the Indian community here. Like you're saying, Bharatanatyam is uh, the form that most people know. I mean, I didn't know about Mohiniyattam until I saw some of your performances, and I had gone to another person's dance recital. So like creating that exposure is so important,
Yes.
definitely. And you were speaking about how you worked with UCLA, and you were currently you were chosen to be a UCLA Regents Lecturer, which is a really big honor. So can you talk about what that has been like, and has it helped you share your stories?
Yeah, it was a great honor, as you said, last year, and the timing was quite amazing. So that was February, and the pandemic broke out in March. I mean, officially was announced in March. So
Yeah.
I was just about made it by narrowly made it, but it was a great experience to. I gave a performance. I started off with a performance at the Kaufman Hall, and then it also entailed the public lecture by me on my journey of Mohiniyattam and how I interpreted the dance form. And
Mhm.
then followed by 2 weeks of teaching at the various departments at the World Arts and Culture and Dance Department. So it was a very I always enjoy teaching young students. It's always something that I love to do. And like I said, I use Mohiniyattam as a kind of a tool to really address other issues, and talk to them about femininity and what they understand of it, and you know how is it perceived in society and things like that. So it was a very wonderful experience to teach at UCLA.
Definitely.
So, mm.
And you've also, like you're talking about the performance lecture series that you have done, you've also done that and been a speaker and a published author at many other places. So how has your research and writing influenced your relationship with dance?
um, I'm also an actress. I also act. That's something very, very close to my heart.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, well, yeah. So all these things are really part of the whole. They all connect with me as a whole, as whether it's a dancer or a singer or an actress or a
Yeah,
feminist or a speaker. All of it kind of coalesce, and really they're all part of the same. But I'm sorry, what was your question? You said, what was your question?
yeah. Just how has your lecture series and your research and your writing influenced your relationship with dance? Like, has that given you a different um, look into dance and a way to share your dance other than performance?
Yeah, definitely. I enjoy writing and I enjoy speaking a lot. I think
Mhm.
that's something I really enjoy doing. I love speaking to an audience and where it's not only about the dance form, and I love to connect the dance form with our, everyday life experience
Absolutely.
and talk about mental health, talk about physical health, talk about the mind-body connection, talk about spiritual experience in life. So, um, writing is another great way to really express all of this.
Mhm.
And my research has always, again, I'm very inspired by my mother because her research was always very performance oriented, where the research is not just, it's not about going into the pedagogy or the very, very academic dimension of the dance form,
Mhm.
but it's really where the research is more performance oriented. So where the research must reflect in the dance and
Mhm.
not just be limited to just bookish knowledge, because I never believed in that and my guru never believed in that.
Definitely.
Ultimately the proof has to be in the pudding, so it has to reflect in the dance. So I can write 20 books, but that doesn't mean anything if it doesn't reflect on the stage. So I learned this from my mother, so
Yeah.
and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. That's definitely a very insightful way to research is basing it on performance, not just reading papers.
Yeah, not just reading papers, writing several books. I
Yeah,
have nothing against academics, but it's got to be a practical, a pragmatic research. It's
absolutely.
it's it's got to it's got to be relevant how we live, how we experience life. So
Yes. And speaking of teaching and speaking to others, you founded the Mohiniyattam Institute. So, what were some of the biggest challenges, and what was that process like?
yeah, I was very excited to form it. I formed it about 5 years ago, and I have a few students who I train in Mohiniyattam, and also I have a professional troupe of dancers that I'm training who will perform with me, who
Mhm.
perform with me in some of my major performances. So I'm very it's a very exciting phase of my life. And I my organization, we also collaborate with a lot of women's organizations that work for women's causes.
Mhm.
So it's an organization which is a little different. Everything about what I do is, by now you should know, is very different. So I
That's good.
collaborate. I just, because that's just who I am. Women's causes are very, very close to my heart. So I give a lot of talks on women's empowerment and femininity, or whether it's art or spiritual traditions or intersection of art and femininity or things like that. So the organization is very involved with all of that. Social education is in some ways also a big part of the artistic education.
Yes. What is art if not a vessel for change?
Right, right.
Yeah. And is there a certain part of directing and choreographing and teaching that is your favorite part?
All this, that I love when I can just use Mohiniyattam as a tool to speak about all this with my students, because that is my ultimate goal.
Mhm.
Is for them to experience for themselves, to connect with their own femininity, to connect and to discover the power of their own femininity. That is my ultimate goal. So, of
Absolutely.
course, through the experience of dancing Mohiniyattam, for them to connect with their own core of femininity.
Mhm.
So this is something I love to do, with whether it's a student or whether it's an audience. This is something that I love to do most.
And when you were choosing pieces to like choosing what you're going to do for production or choreography, what are some of the factors that you consider when you're choreographing or picking or producing?
I think I'm just somebody who's very intuitive. I really don't plan anything. I don't go with a plan. I have never gone with a plan. It's never, never, ever. And whenever it just can't work the plan. So it's always, it has to either be a concept that inspires me, or it could be certain music that inspires me. Like Tchaikovsky was music.
Mhm,
Paryapti was concept of the the marginalized women being paid a tribute to. Unniarcha again was the concept and the music. So I really don't have a plan in mind. I don't really I just follow my intuition.
mhm.
Whatever I feel, my gut feeling tells me, I just go with that. It's a very spontaneous process.
Absolutely. When inspiration strikes.
Yes.
And you have performed at so many esteemed venues and international festivals like the Bolshoi Theatre and the Edinburgh International Festival. So has there been an experience that you've held the dearest to your heart? I know that must be like, that's a weird question to ask, but is there a performance that you felt the most connected to?
Yeah. No, it's not a weird question at all. It's a fantastic question. All your questions have been fantastic. So I
Thank
really want
you.
you to know that.
Thank you.
I really want you to know that you have asked such pertinent and meaningful questions. Um, well, I think one of the highlights and most memorable was performing at the Bolshoi Theatre and performing Swan Lake. It's performing their culture. I mean, having the courage and the audacity to dance to their classical music. I mean, it really took a lot of courage
Yeah.
on my part. But at the same time, I feel when we do something that really comes from our heart and really comes with that purity of intention, then the other person definitely feels that. I have
Mhm.
always experienced that in my life, always, not just in terms of dance, but even in terms of human relationships. Very often we had that is reciprocated.
Mhm.
Not always, but if the other person is open, then it is reciprocated. So I felt like performing Swan Lake in Mohiniyattam at the Bolshoi Theatre. The kind of appreciation we received from the Russian audience was really unprecedented, and from the Russian press. What was interesting is they were very nervous for us. What are we going to do? Are we going to make an ass of ourselves? What are they trying to do? you know I mean, they are the ultimate, if we talk of ballet. But
Yes,
it became such an enriching experience for them, because I helped enable them to destroy their own stereotypes that they had of ballet, where
definitely.
it was, certain, having a certain look, or the ballet dancers, but they saw a South Indian dance form with jasmine in their hair, and where the emotions were much more dramatic and heightened portrayal of emotions. It was something very unprecedented for them, you know so I think, and they really, really appreciated the effort and they loved it. So that to me is probably the most, and Bolshoi theaters, every dancer's fantasy
Yeah.
to, is the ultimate place to perform. So I couldn't really ask for more.
Yeah, that sounds like such a lovely experience to really take your own version of someone's story and present it to them to show them what all is possible within that story, really.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, that is what life is. Life is all about infinite possibilities. So how can a dance form be exempt from that? How can a dance form be limited? That's impossible. That's not the way life or the universe works.
I agree, absolutely. And that was an example of how like Russian music has inspired you. Having moved to the US, how has that changed or inspired or affected your specific art making process compared to when you were in India?
Um, it's not really changed anything because I was very, what shall I say, international in my perspective, even when I lived in India. I
Mhm.
always had a very different mind. I always had a mind of my own. And so I continue to be that. It's almost like a continuum of what I've always been,
Okay. Mhm.
what I've always been. But I have to add that my being in America has enabled me to collaborate with the phenomenal American artists
Mhm.
that I have absolutely not just enjoyed, I have found it extraordinarily enriching, extraordinarily. And the amazing thing is these collaborations with these American artists, especially with or artists from Hollywood, and I've acted in a film called Carmen, where we again inspired from Western opera, and we had an
Mm.
international crew. We shot it in downtown LA at the Metabolic Studios, which is, I think, run by the Annenberg Foundation. And we shot this film 10 years ago, where it was shot on an anamorphic lens, and it was supposed to be converted into a 3D film, which couldn't happen. But then it was screened at some international festivals all over the world. So collaborations like that, it was phenomenally enriching and inspiring for me. Opportunities like other Indian dancers never had. I've had some of those opportunities. Or singing for Mac Quayle, who's done platinum records with Whitney Houston, and you know, I mean, he's such a amazing composer, and I'm singing in his studio in Topanga Canyon, and we've created a whole CD of my music. So these are
Mhm.
things I never expected to do, and I've loved. So this has all come out of my living in America. So for that, I'm deeply, deeply grateful, and I'm looking to make deeper inroads into Hollywood with
Yes,
Mohiniyattam, and so that has been a great, great experience for me.
absolutely. That's so wonderful to hear how not only are you a dancer, but you're also an actor and a singer and really just a multi-hyphenated artist. It's wonderful to hear.
No, I think we all have that. I think it's very important to not succumb to uh, the various definitions that are put out of us. And as a
Mhm.
dancer, we are always expected to be a certain way. And
Mm.
not just as a dancer, I think it's very important in life to not succumb to other people's expectations or definitions of us.
Mhm.
It's very, very important. They could be our own parents, but to constantly ask ourselves, who am I? Am I being who I really am, or am I being what others expect me to be,
Yeah.
or what others think I should be? So if I was what others expected me to be as a Mohiniyattam dancer, I would just be performing, teaching, that's it.
Yeah.
Never speaking, never acting, never singing, never being a feminist. But that's who I am. So it's very important to really ask ourselves who we are. Who am I? What am I meant to do? What do I love to do? This is what I talk to all my students. Don't just do what is expected of you from your parents, from your family, from society, your culture. Follow your heart. Have the courage. And very often we don't have anybody to support us in this. We're pretty much on our own, but even that's worth it. That's totally worth it.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Totally.
And building on that, do you have any advice for aspiring dancers other than the multitude of gems you've already shared?
Advice, I think I literally, I think, answered that before your question now. And follow your heart, Have the courage to be who you really are. Don't succumb into pressure, into being something that you are not just with dance, with anything in your life.
Mhm.
And when we have the courage to really follow our heart, then the rewards are immense. Rewards are phenomenal. And I say this that in my talks, that when we take the first step, the universe takes 10.
Yes.
Universe takes 10, universe takes 100. But the first step we have to take. And we must believe in our, not be afraid to dream, and we must believe in our dreams. Very, very important. And believe in ourselves. So uh, that's all I would say to.
Definitely. That's beautiful advice. And I hope that I can incorporate that into my own life and art making practice.
Of course, you already are. Look what you're doing with QISSAA, with Ishika. How many people are doing what you do? So how unique are you? You're already doing that. You're already on that path of being true to yourself. So
Mhm.
you should be so proud of yourself.
Thank you. um, as you mentioned, the show is called A Kissa with Ishika. So, and a kissa means episode. So, has there been any very influential kissa in your life that has really shaped who you are or your dance or anything? Something very influential.
Um, I think I'm going to share something very personal right now. I think that was a very big influence in my life, perhaps when I was um, young, very young. Um, I saw my mother, I found her in a very bad marriage. And my father was a very abusive and very misogynistic. And I think very early on in my life, probably at the age of 5 or even before, I really felt very, very strongly about women being respected,
Mhm.
and that women being violated was absolutely unacceptable to me, even at that very tiny age. And I was kind of singularly responsible for pulling her out of the marriage. So very early on in my life, as a very young girl, I had somehow had the spunk to do that. Um, I have, uh, that was, I think, a very, very influential episode in my life that really influenced me in very many ways, in terms of even my artistic work, and shaping the woman that I am. I think
Yeah.
all of that. So and recognizing, eventually now, as I see it as my life purpose, to
Mhm.
really speak about these things that as a society we never want to talk about.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Thank you for feeling comfortable to share that and for your courage in doing so. And that courage that you had then is so evident in the art you make now. So, yes, it was a very influential. Yeah.
thank you, thank you.
So, we're almost at the end, but I just have what are you currently working on and what are your upcoming projects?
I'm very excited to be working on, it's like an international collaboration with artists inspired from the sacred feminine traditions around the world. So I've been working on that now for a while. And yeah, it's quite demanding, as you can tell. There's a lot of components. Yeah, I'm very excited about that. Mm.
Wonderful. And once that releases, or even before that, how can people find your work and support your institute?
Well, the first thing they can do is, we also have a website, the mohiniyattam but it's in the process of, I'm integrating both my websites. So the Mohiniyattam Institute will soon become part of Vijayalakshmi.net. It's a kind of an older website.
Okay.
But how can they support? By learning to dance Mohiniyattam
Yes.
to begin with, attend our performances, donate to the institute so that we can carry on with all these activities that I mentioned, and
Mhm.
spread the word, and go to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Vijayalakshmi_TMI for my Instagram, so that everybody can see about all the activities that I'm engaged with. So that's the way they can support.
Absolutely. And I just put the Mohiniyattam Institute's website into the chat. So if anyone is watching on YouTube, you can
Mm,
see there from there and go to there.
great. That's wonderful.
Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a masterclass in just dance and feminism and just overall artistry. So I really, really enjoyed speaking with you.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Rishika. Thank you so much. And I wish, and I'm absolutely sure you have a glorious future ahead of you. And it's so wonderful, so commendable to see this initiative of yours. I think
Thank,
I wish you all the success in this and with all your other endeavors.
thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for watching. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and find Vijayalakshmi's channel and subscribe to her channel as well. And share this video with anyone in your life that, I think I froze, with anyone in your life. Oh no. But anyway, stay tuned for the next update on when the next episode will be out. Yeah. And take care, everyone.